With heat swirling through the Thunderbolt's cockpit, Patrick refrained from triggering the LRMs, but let go with his full complement of lasers. The large laser's green beam speared the Wolverine in the center of its chest, leaving a smoking hole. The mech shuddered, then listed to the right, suggesting the shot had punched through a flawed plating and melted a gyro. The trio of red beams carved layers of armor from the mech's left flank and left leg. None of them got through to vital systems, but the loss of armor radically shifted the mech's mass. Whenever the discussion comes up for what mechs new BattleTech players should use in their first games, the Thunderbolt is inevitably mentioned. Often it is included among other classic mechs like the Wolverine, Marauder, Battlemaster, Locust, and Phoenix Hawk. It is among fine company, and the adulation is well deserved. There are few heavy battlemechs more common across the inner sphere than the Thunderbolt. It is served in house armies and pirate bands. It's been constructed for the SLDF and for small periphery nations. The Thunderbolt has served for 6.5 centuries, which is astonishing considering how much can change technologically in a single lifetime. Today, I want to dig a little bit and see if we can identify why this 65-ton battlemech is so popular, and why we can definitely say we love the Thunderbolt. Designed and first constructed in the middle of the Star League era, the TDR-5S Thunderbolt was, at the time, one of the heaviest and best armed battlemechs in existence. As the last few years of the 25th century rolled by, the Thunderbolt's reputation was forged as a tough battlemech that could lead planetary assaults, hold defensive lines, and outlast almost any other mech on the field. While other mechs had their days in the sun, the demand for Thunderbolts has been consistent ever since those early years. Throughout the Ameris Civil War, the Succession Wars, and even pitted against the clans, the Thunderbolt has been a valued asset. Rolling off the first production lines in 2491 by Earthworks Incorporated, the Thunderbolt was constructed around a proprietary TDR chassis, which provided unparalleled strength and durability. The Magna 260 standard fusion engine was reliable and propelled the heavy mech to a top speed of 64.5 km per hour. At the time, that was quite good for a heavy battlemech. The 13 tons of Ryerson 150 standard armor did an excellent job of protecting the mech's internal bits. Between the armor plating, the standard fusion engine, and the weapon placement, the Thunderbolt became known for being tough to take down and to keep down. The Neil 8000 communication system and RCA, good for you for still existing 1,000 years from now, Instatrack Mark 10 targeting and tracking system were industry standard and ran without issues. Of course, we all know what really drives interest in those military-industrial conventions, the big weapons. The Sunglow Type 2 large laser in the right arm is the Thunderbolt 5S's primary weapon. Backing it up at the longest range is a Delta Dart long-range missile 15 rack on the left shoulder. For closer range brawls, which happen often, 3 diverse optics Type 18 medium lasers added additional punch to the large laser's energy medley. The Baikal short-range Missile 2 system was not usually a game-changer, but it did offer a little extra damage at the short range and could be effective against infantry, especially if you pack it with Inferno rounds. Finally, 2 Volkers 200 machine guns in the left arm were a serious threat to infantry and light vehicles. Now, while it might be a little bit of the kitchen sink type of loadout that the 3025 TRO mechs are known for, the combination of large laser, 3 medium lasers, and the LRM-15 work really well together and can put up damage numbers. Not all the other designs can make that claim. Looking at you, Shadowhawk. The Alpha Strike damage at 9 hexes looks good at a possible 38, however, we have to consider heat in the equation as the Thunderbolt 5S has only 10 single heat sinks. Even just firing the large laser and 1 of the medium lasers is going to push you up to 11 heat. So heat management and risk versus reward are going to be key. For you BattleTech players who started playing before the double heat sinks were a thing, you know this better than most, how adding just 1 more laser to the mix or firing that LRM-15 along with the large laser can tempt you into the red. It's not unheard of for Mechwarriors to move their mechs into bodies of water in order to aid with the cooling of the mech as the battle continues. In one conflict on Damien in 2902, a trio of Thunderbolts from the Combine's 9th Son Zhang Academy cadre planted themselves in the middle of Lake Omenshelter and held off more than 10 battlemechs under the command of a bandit king named Helman Vasilek. The defenders were able to hold their ground and took advantage of the lake's cooling waters as they pumped laser fire into the bandits. Eventually, the raiders were forced to retreat from the planet without claiming any booty. Over the years, the Thunderbolt saw a lot of field refits and official variants, as different production lines and state actors sought to tweak the Thunderbolt's capabilities. While we're not going to go through all of them in this video, as there are a lot of them, I did select a handful which I think are interesting or add a unique element to the gameplay experience. Some of those not included did things such as adding new technologies, or swapping out weapons in exchange for upgraded engines, or even jump jets. Each have their uses, and not being included in this video is not a judgment of their value. With the rediscovery of long-forgotten Star League technology of the Helm and Memory Core, and the arrival of the clans in the Inner Sphere, there was a rush to update existing designs with new technology. The Thunderbolt was high on the list to see some upgrades. One of the more notable variants was the TDR-7M, which directly addressed the heat dissipation issue by installing 15 double heat sinks. This tripling of the mech's cooling allowed for the upgrade of the large laser to the extended range version. This improved the long-range punch of the mech, yet a full alpha strike from all the weapons still wasn't enough to make the mech overheat. Now that made quite a big difference going from a mech that overheats all the time to a mech that you can't overheat. It also makes use of the Inner Sphere ferrofibrous armor to buy weight for additional weaponry. The Thunderbolt 7M is a great mech for new players. It has a little bit of everything, yet when that ER large laser and LRM-15 hits, the player feels powerful. The Streak SRM-2 provides the opportunity to learn its unique lock-on rule, and not having to worry about heat is a good place to start for any new player. Finally, the use of Case keeps the player alive and in the fight without worry of that deadly ammo explosion. It was my go-to when my youngest child first started playing the game, and I thoroughly recommend it. Now, it's interesting that even as the timeline moved forward into the 3040s and 50s, production of the original Thunderbolt 5S continued throughout the Inner Sphere. Production lines within the Torian Concordat, for example, lacked access to the newer technologies like double heatsinks and ER large lasers, so they just kept chugging along with the original version of the mech, which is arguably still dangerous even in the clan invasion era. Most ended up in the Torian Defense Force, but excess production was sold off to friendly mercenary organizations, so they can still be found everywhere. I held my Thunderbolt in a half-crouch on the front slope of the ridge, pumping missiles and laser fire into the advancing enemy. Something slammed into my bolt's torso and chunks of armor shrieked away. I held my position until the last SRMs were expended, then concentrated on firing at the closest Davion mechs with my lasers. The temperature indicators on my control panel were well into the red. This intense a firefight could not last long. My Thunderbolt's weaponry was generating far more heat than the old mech's cooling system could handle. The onboard computer flashed warnings and letters of green light across the corner of my helmet display. Warning: heat critical. Now, our next stop on the variant tour is the Thunderbolt 9S. With this variant, we start to see more substantive changes to the loadout. The large laser in the right arm is pulled in favor of an ER-PPC, which boosts the damage and range considerably. The signature 3 medium lasers in the left torso and the 2 machine guns in the left arm are retained, but the SRM-2 is upgraded to an SRM-6, which significantly increases the mech's close-range punch. Additionally, 2 flamers were added to the right torso to tackle any bothersome infantry. All combined, the point-blank power of the Thunderbolt 9S needs some appreciation. The individual weapons might not be that scary on their own, but combined, that's 8 weapons tearing and burning through armor a little bit at a time, every turn, a possible 25 damage without end. Add in the ER-PPC's 10 damage, and that's up to 35. Not too shabby for a brawling heavy. Closely related to the Thunderbolt 9S is the 9SE, a variant made famous by the Eridani Lighthorse, who pulled the machine guns, SRMs, and downgraded the LRM launcher to an LRM-10 to make room for 4 jump jets and a large pulse laser. While it does sacrifice a bit of the mech's offensive power and range, it does benefit from increased mobility and accuracy with the pulse laser technology. While not for everyone, the Thunderbolt 9 SE is a good option for the Mechwarriors who absolutely must have jump jets in their heavy mech and want to close in on their targets for a face-to-face conflict resolution. Now, it's really great to see that over time the Thunderbolt's reputation only improved. Even among clan warriors, the mech was seen as formidable. When the Jade Falcon Turkina Keshik and 124th Striker Cluster successfully claimed Sudeten in 3050, the major industrial hub was retooled to replace the clan's lost equipment. the Olivetti Thunderbolt line was upgraded to produce what was known as the Thunderbolt C2 for distribution to garrison forces throughout the Falcon occupation zone. Given the clan tech upgrade, the C2's core remained unchanged except for the conversion of its 17 double heatsinks to the clan models to save space. All of the weapons were replaced with clan tech. The ERPPC in the right arm is the mech's primary go-to weapon for distance shots. At 15 hexes, the 3 ER medium lasers in the left torso and the 4th in the left arm can add up to 28 additional damage per turn. At 12 hexes distance, the Streak SRM-6 on the left torso can come into play. At point-blank range, the pair of ER small lasers in the left arm have replaced their traditional 2 machine guns, and 2 small pulse lasers in the right torso can make quick work of infantry and battle armor. Finally, the mech is shielded by an anti-missile system installed in the right torso. While an Alpha Strike at close range would absolutely tax the 17 double heatsinks, this wouldn't be the norm and can easily be mitigated by holding off on the ERPPC fire in exchange for lighting up a target at close range with the medley of other lasers. The Thunderbolt C2 is a nasty brawler, and without an XL engine and plenty of weapons on each side of the mech, it's tough to take down and you'll be taking fire the whole time. The Thunderbolt C2 is a great example of just how much of an advantage the clans had with their technology in the early years of the invasion. Our next stop takes us up the timeline to 3086 with the Thunderbolt designated the 10S. This variant is notable as it takes the mech in a new direction as much more of a mid to long range fighter. It also has an engine swap to the new light engine technology. It does impact the mech's survivability, but with only 2 engine criticals in the side torsos instead of 3 with a normal XL engine, it is acceptable. The left arm carries an ERPPC and the right arm an ER large laser. Adding an LRM-15 to the right torso completes the triad for long-range fire at that 19 to 23 hex range. At the mid-range, the 3 ER medium lasers in the left torso finish up the loadout. This variant is meat and potatoes with the caveat that you're going to have to do some heat management even just firing those 3 long-range weapons. That LRM-15 may end up as a sometimes addition to the turn-by-turn fire. I like the 10S as a slightly updated example of how the Inner Sphere technology is gradually improving to close the gap with the clans. It's not overburdened by tech that has strange rules that slow down gameplay, it's worth checking out if you're looking for something new. Our last official variant is the Thunderbolt 17S. I did say there were a lot of variants, right? This is our high-tech Operation Sneaky Sneak variant, which has a lot of little bells and whistles. While this mech retains its 4.6 walk speed and run speed, the 17S has a compact engine which is heavier but takes up less space. Oh, and it was given a heavy-duty gyro. Weighing twice as much as a standard gyro, it can take 1 additional critical hit before giving out in a fight. Both of these combine to make the mech much more difficult to kill, as those critical hit locations are fewer and tougher. The addition of triple strength Myomer grants the mech additional speed in a heated situation, and the additional damage from physical attacks is also great to have in a pinch. Even though the 17S is equipped with an ERPPC in the right arm, the rest of the loadout screams up-close conflict. With 3 medium pulse lasers in the left torso and 1 in the left arm, you're going to want to be in short range as quickly as possible. Thankfully, the 17S also has a Guardian ECM which can help make that happen. The 10 double heatsinks work with the loadout as the PPC is a great heat generator for that triple strength Myomer. It's definitely a mech that requires some mastery of the heat curve, so please don't drop this mech on a newbie. Now, because my narcissism knows no bounds, I did create my own variant for your consideration. It's a bit like throwing a rock in a pond with so many other variants out there, but I think I have a unique take on our dear friend, the Thunderbolt. The Thunderbolt MF1 is a purely Inner Sphere creation and carries no clan tech. It does benefit from a light fusion engine and endosteel, but 13 tons of armor are standard. The mech's primary weapon is an ERPPC in the left arm. It's supported by an LRM-15 launcher in the left torso that is Artemis 4 equipped. In the right arm, the MF1 carries a plasma rifle that can aid in the mid-range with 10 points of damage plus additional heat. It's also useful for clearing out infantry and battle armor. With survivability in mind, the last 1.5 tons of armor are dedicated to the standard anti-missile system in the left torso. All of the ammunition in the left torso is protected by a case. The 14 double heatsinks are adequate for sustained fire with the ERPPC and the LRM-15, or the PPC and the plasma rifle, but firing all three will require a little bit of heat management over a longer battle. It's only +2 into the red each turn, so you'll have 2 turns before it starts to become an issue. If you're a newbie to the channel or haven't seen the plasma rifle rule, it does 10 damage plus an additional 2d6 damage to any unit that doesn't track heat. Against mechs or targets that do track heat, it does the 10 damage plus an additional 1d6 points of heat during that turn's heat phase. There are some other little details for it, but that's the gist of the plasma rifle. Check Total Warfare out if you want to see how it all works. If you're up to giving the Thunderbolt MF1 a try, I've included the Dropbox link to the record sheet in the video comments below. Obviously, we've just touched on the surface of all the different ways that Thunderbolt has been modded to meet the needs of the 31st and 32nd century battlefields. The fact that mechs that are considered quote-unquote old are never really swept away is one of my favorite bits about BattleTech. A unit is never really left completely irrelevant or useless. Before you run to the comments section to point it out, yes, even the urban mech. I do hope that it's obvious now why the Thunderbolt holds a special place in the hearts of so many Mechwarriors. Do you have a favorite variant of the Thunderbolt which didn't make my list? Why is it your favorite? Let me know in the comments below and we'll keep the fun going. Big thank you for hanging out today. If you felt it was worthwhile, please let YouTube know by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Another free way to support the channel is to share this video with one other person that might enjoy it. That way the community we're building can keep growing, and that's good for BattleTech. If you want to take the extra step to become a YouTube channel member, that goes a long way as ad revenue is likely much less than you might imagine. Every little bit helps to keep the nonsense flowing. It's been a pleasure. Until we meet again, take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.